Hello, today I'm going to give my top 10 occult folk horror TV series. This will also include TV movies and miniseries. I'm going to avoid standalone episodes. I'm going to do a video on that later, so you have that to look forward to, I guess. I want to talk about two things real quick though. The first is I did not include the Twin Peaks series on here. I do think there are elements of folk horror in it, but it is not completely folk horror, so I did not include it. The second thing is there was one series that came up in my research called Escape into Night, but I don't recommend it, so I did not include it here and I did not make it an honorable mention. I actually shut it off about 3 episodes in. I have a bunch of other top 10 videos if you want to check those out, but let's get into this list. At number 10, we have The Owl Service, 1969 to 1970. It has 8 episodes and they total 200 minutes. Directed by Peter Plummer, starring Gillian Hills, Michael Holden, and Francis Wallace. Teenagers in a Welsh valley become entangled in a recurring myth, leading to psychological and supernatural disturbances. The past and present blur as ancient legends resurface. So this is adapted from Alan Garner's novel of the same name. It's the first fully scripted color production by Granada Television. It's notable for its innovative editing techniques to depict overlapping time periods. One thing I really loved about it was the harp soundtrack. I think the opening credits are super charming, and there's a lot of David Lynch-like sound design, a lot of scratching and weird little noises that hint at the kind of folk mystery that's going on. I wouldn't say this was scary. It's more of a mystery designed for young adults. When I was watching it, I got this vibe of Scooby-Doo. It drags a little bit in the middle and can be hard to follow at times. And I also think the characters were a little annoying, but I've had several people mention this to me, so I thought I'd give it a try. I think it might be a little overrated. It took a long time for me to finish it. I got to about episode 4 and it just stalled, and it took me probably 2 months to watch it because I would watch an episode, kind of, get into it a little bit, starting to like it, and then I would lose interest and I have to come back. I will say I'm glad I stuck it through to the end and didn't give up on it. It did have a reward at the end, but I tend to like my folk horror a little scarier than this. At number 9, we have The Dark Secret of Harvest Home from 1978, and it had 2 episodes. It was a mini-series totaling 228 minutes. Directed by Leo Penn, starring Bette Davis, David Aykroyd, Joanna Miles, and Rosanna Arquette. A family moves to an idyllic New England village only to discover its pagan rituals and dark secrets. The community's charm masks a chilling undercurrent of ancient traditions. This is based on Tom Tyron's novel Harvest Home. This was a little bit hard to find. You can find it on YouTube in various cuts. I watched the long one, but the quality is shit, I have to admit. I searched and searched for a better quality version, but could not find one. There is a shorter version that's better quality, but I wanted to see the long one. Bette Davis delivers a standout performance as the widow Fortune. There's this really crazy scene in the middle of it that has this cornfield, and these dancers come out of the cornfield. And they're very expressive, they're doing this, and they have these kind of shawls. It kind of reminded me of the Dance of the Seven Veils or something. It was really, on the erotic side. I think it would have benefited if this was on a streaming service or something. The whole series would have. There are other scenes that are supposed to be a little bit erotic, but they're too chaste for network TV. This was re-aired in 1979 and later on TNT and the Sci-Fi Channel. Overall, I think it was pretty successful, and Bette Davis rocks in it. The ending has some nice reveals. If you like folk horror, you always like those twists where, they're kind of bleak. That's kind of how this ending is. At number 8, we have Crowhaven Farm from 1970. It's a TV movie that totals 74 minutes, directed by Walter Grauman, starring Hope Lang, Paul Burke, and John Carradine. A couple inherits a New England farm only to uncover its dark history of witchcraft and satanic rituals. As eerie visions plague the wife, the past's sinister forces resurface. So the director of this also directed an episode of The Twilight Zone. It also features 9 actors that appeared in The Twilight Zone. The strength of this is there's no filler here. This is a very lean and mean script. An example of it is the first few minutes. It tells so much information just from these kind of conversations that two people are having that you gain, pages and pages of script in a very, very short amount of time. And the ending is bleak, fatalistic, and morally ambiguous. And like a lot of good horror, the ending, the final twist implies damnation was always inevitable, no matter what you do. One very creepy part of this is the child character. She's a bit of a seductress. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but she's pretty creepy. At number 7, we have The Living and the Dead from 2016. This is 6 episodes totaling 346 minutes, directed by Alice Troughton and Sam Donovan, starring Colin Morgan and Charlotte Spencer. In 1894 Somerset, a psychologist and his wife inherit a farm plagued by supernatural occurrences. As they delve deeper, the line between science and the occult blurs. One thing I want to point out is the theme song is A Like Wake Dirge by the Insects. This is a folk song that's been done many times. Artists like Pentangle, Al Stewart, and Dead Can Dance all have done this song. I think the best version is from Alistair Roberts. It's kind of funny because I heard this song several years ago. I had it on some mixes and I kind of forgot about it. But then when the opening credits started, I'm like, oh, that song, I totally forgot about that song. It's super folk horror if you like that kind of thing. As far as the series, it's a lot about grief and trauma. There are these kind of time loops and this ancestral guilt. It's a little bit like M.R. James meets Donnie Darko or something. That's the only way I can describe it. The village feels older than the characters, like it's waiting to kind of pull them under. The fields, the barns, these kind of empty moors, they're not peaceful. They're oppressive. Nature isn't healing here, it's hungry. But I think this is kind of equal parts gothic ghost story and psychological breakdown. It reminds me a lot of The Haunting of Hill House, but mixed with folk horror and the psychological elements that are kind of like The Shining, where there is this descent into madness. It's not overly scary, but there are a few parts that got me. I would say it's actually a bit of a depressing series. I felt a little bit off after watching it. I liked it, but it grapples with a lot of these existential questions and stuff, and it's a bit bleak. At number 6, we have Children of the Stones from 1977. There are 7 episodes totaling 210 minutes. Directed by Peter Graham Scott, starring Gareth Thomas, Ian Cuthbertson, Veronica Strong, and Freddie Jones. A father and son move to a village surrounded by ancient stones, uncovering a community under the influence of a mysterious force. The duo investigates the village's peculiar rituals and the stone's power. This was filmed on location. This is considered a landmark in children's television drama for its complex themes. I would say it transcends that. I enjoyed this one quite a lot despite its flaws and limited budget. They get a lot of mileage out of the eerie premise. I mean, I'll just say it, Freddie Jones is always awesome and he definitely delivers here. He's not in it a lot, but whenever he's in it, he kind of steals the show. I wouldn't say this is overly scary, but there is a kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers quality about it. And like a lot of low-budget TV shows, this kind of reuses a lot of stuff. If you watch, old cartoons, they always, show the stock kind of footage, and this is a lot like that. They keep showing this painting over and over again. And the first, few times you're kind of like, oh, that's, a little creepy. Then they just keep using it over and over again. And by the end, you're like, I don't need to see this painting anymore. At number 5, we have The Third Day from 2020. There are 6 episodes totaling 351 minutes. The directors are Mark Munden for summer, Philippa Lowthorpe for winter, and Felix Barrett for autumn. starring Jude Law, Naomi Harris, Emily Watson, and Patty Considine. Set on mysterious OC Island, the series explores themes of grief and belief through 3 interconnected parts: summer, autumn, and winter. Each segment delves into the island's enigmatic rituals and the characters' psychological unraveling. This is definitely influenced by The Wicker Man. It was filmed on the real OC Island, accessible only during low tide. This is a nod to the Woman in Black TV series, which I found very, very scary. The isolated island setting traps the characters in a closed world. It's remote, it's cut off, nobody can help you. The pagan rituals and local mythology feel authentic and lived in, not just aesthetic set dressing. This blurs reality and delusion through hallucinatory visuals, and there's a bit of unreliable narrator kind of going on here. Like The Living and the Dead, this explores grief. Like most folk horror, there's an element of sacrifice in here and rebirth. It really stresses the kind of seasonal fertility rites. I did find the structure a bit strange. I can't really go into it without giving away spoilers, but the story jumps around a bit and you kind of don't know what's going on at a certain point. It eventually works itself out, but there was a moment where I almost shut it off because I was like, where is this going? Some of the symbolism is kind of heavy-handed or vague to the point of confusion, especially in the later episodes. I actually think this would have benefited from one director instead of split into 3. The emotional payoff is uneven. Certain characters and arcs don't land the way that they should, I think. I would actually say the first segment is the strongest. Jude Law's acting in here is exceptional. In fact, it really gripped me. It's when the second act comes in and the third act that I definitely lost interest a bit in the second act. Eventually, once I realized what was going on, it got me back. But there was a large leap I kind of had to take to get there. You might get bored and just skip out. I don't know. At number 4, we have Robin Redbreast from 1970. It's a TV movie at 76 minutes. Directed by James McTaggart, starring Anna Cropper, Andrew Bradford, and Frida Bamford. A recently separated woman relocates to a rural cottage for peace, only to be drawn into the villagers' strange customs and ancient fertility rites. As their true intentions surface, she finds herself ensnared in a chilling pagan conspiracy. So this one really surprised me. It started off quite slow, and again, I almost turned it off. But about a third in, the clues started popping up, and I got more intrigued as it got progressively more and more and more creepy. By halfway in, I was definitely hooked. It was quite subtle overall, and I think it had a great payoff. And that's one thing to say about it is the first probably half of it is so subtle that you don't even really realize until things start really progressing what all the other stuff was near the beginning. Once you see the whole story and you look back on it, you're like, wow, that's really cool. It originally aired as part of the Play for Today anthology series on BBC One. It was also originally shot in color, but only survives as a 16mm black and white print because the BBC used to do tape wiping. It was thought lost for decades until the tele-recording was recovered. Now it's considered one of the foundational works of British folk horror, predating The Wicker Man by 3 years. The Robin motif reflects ancient sacrificial kingship myths. And if you've ever read Fraser's The Golden Bough, it draws heavily from that. Anna Cropper's performance has this feminist subtext, but it's not done in an empowering way here. She's kind of a victim because of her feminist views in a way. It is a story about bodily autonomy and patriarchal control. And the final scene is widely regarded as one of the bleakest conclusions in early British horror television. And I will say it really left me a bit stunned. I didn't really see it coming, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good. It's so matter-of-fact that it's chilling in its matter-of-factness. There's this kind of double whammy where there's one reveal and you're like, oh man, and then there's a second one and you're like, oh wow, that's crazy. At number 3, we have Yellowjackets, 2021 to the present. So this has more than 30 episodes. It's still ongoing. So far, it's over 1,650 minutes of television, so it's quite an investment. The showrunners are Ashley Lyle, Bart Nickerson, and Jonathan Lisko. Starring Melanie Linsky, Juliette Lewis, Christina Ricci, and Ella Purnell. A high school girls' soccer team survives a plane crash in the wilderness, leading to a descent into savagery. Years later, the survivors grapple with their pasts and the secrets they carry. This was nominated for multiple Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series. Season 3 concluded in April of 2025, but they are developing Season 4. It's known for its dual timeline, narrative, and psychological drama. If I was to try to contain this, I would say it draws from Lord of the Flies, the novel The Beach, the Cult of Eleusis, and perhaps The Wicker Man. It's kind of this grimy, claustrophobic survival horror that taps into primal fears of isolation and the breakdown of society, what happens when the rules go out the window. The complex, flawed characters have this trauma in their past that fuels the present tension. So it's sort of told in two times. It blends psychological horror with coming-of-age drama in a very unique way, I think. One of the strengths of it is it uses this non-linear timeline to slowly reveal its secrets and to build suspense, and I think they do that very well. It explores themes of savage tribalism opposed with this loss of innocence. I mentioned a second ago that it draws from the Cult of Eleusis, and that's actually how I heard of this series as I was doing research for the novel I'm working on right now. And one of the things about Eleusis is in the cult, they had this group of women called the Miniseries, or the Bees, Yellowjackets. And they were priestesses of Demeter, Persephone, and Artemis. The word Melissa means bee, and these priestesses were seen as sacred messengers, intermediaries between the divine and the mortal realms. The symbol of the bee is associated with the soul, the psyche, and with communal order, but also with madness and frenzy, reminiscent of the Maenads. In the show, they symbolize the collective spiritual hive. After the plane crash, spoilers, they begin to function like a hive, a kind of matriarchal, queen-topped system. For part of the show, there's this struggle of who is going to be the matriarch. If I was to compare the two timelines, I think the one in the past is a little more interesting, and I actually like the performers a little bit better in that because they have different actresses playing them in the past and in the present. Sometimes the pacing drags a bit, especially in the later episodes, and I would say it also relies a lot on melodrama and cliches, and this kind of undercuts the vibe a little bit. All in all, I think the first season is excellent. Number 2 is pretty good too. 3 had some bumps, but it ended well, and I look forward to season 4. If it doesn't stick the landing, then maybe it will drop on this list, I don't know. Even without knowing the end, I think it belongs on here. At number 2, we have The Terror from 2018. There are 10 episodes totaling 470 minutes. The showrunner is David Kajganich, starring Jared Harris, Tobias Menzies, and Kieran Hines. A fictionalized account of the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror's ill-fated Arctic expedition, where the crew faces not only the harsh elements but also a mysterious predator. The series blends historical drama with supernatural horror. So far, there are 2 seasons with a 3rd on the way, but I'm just going to focus on season 1. If I was to compare this to anything, I would say it's like John Carpenter's The Thing meets Master and Commander. It's based on Dan Simmons' novel, The Terror. The claustrophobic isolation amplifies the dread, which is always an element of folk horror, this kind of isolation. It's set in the Arctic. The landscape itself becomes hostile and unforgiving. It blends historical realism with supernatural folklore, making the folk myth feel believable and terrifying. The themes of imperial arrogance and nature's revenge mirror classic folk horror warnings about violating ancient forces. There's this kind of slow unraveling of the sanity. There's a mutiny, and cannibalism plays into the ritual horror and the psychological collapse. There's this monstrous presence in the background It functions like a vengeful nature spirit or a totemic god. It's this unknowable, almost Lovecraftian force tied to the indigenous cosmology. It doesn't treat Inuit spirituality as a gimmick. The pacing is a bit slow in the middle episodes, but eventually the horror escalates and it has a very solid ending in my opinion. I found this quite scary at times and certainly eerie. The production value is excellent. This is a beautiful series. There's some digital work going on, but I think it's done very well. I really love season 1, so I definitely think it should be on here. Some people might dispute me and say it's not folk horror, but I think all the indigenous aspects and the isolation make it folk horror. And at number 1, we have True Detective Season 1 from 2014. It has 8 episodes totaling 458 minutes. Directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga, and the showrunner is Nick Pizzolatto. He also wrote it. Starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, detectives Russ Cole and Marty Hart investigate a series of ritualistic murders in Louisiana, uncovering a web of occult practices and existential dread. The case spans 17 years, challenging their psyches and beliefs. I'm not going to say too much about this, but you can check out my True Detective video if you want to know more. I have a whole video about it. But basically this is a Southern Gothic folk horror story, and it's all about atmosphere. It's intriguing, and there's this kind of ambiguous mythology based off the work of Robert W. Chambers, The King in Yellow, and the story of Carcosa. There are all kinds of themes about institutional corruption and hidden darkness, occult darkness. Rust Cole is the grim outsider, sort of prophet archetype. It also references the work of Thomas Ligotti quite a bit. Episode 4 has one of the best tracking shots in TV history. And I would go so far as to say this is maybe one of the most consistent, compelling seasons in TV history as well. It's up there with, the first season of Twin Peaks, something like that. And I did read recently that Nick Pizzolatto has an idea for a second story. So maybe there will be another one with those characters. That would be pretty cool. I liked the later ones, but not as much as the first one. But that's all I got for this. If you have anything that you think should have been on here, you can comment below, or if you have anything to say about any of these series, you can also comment. And one last thing, I just want to mention that I will have 2 more top 10 lists coming out in the next couple months. One is going to be Gnostic, and one is going to be folk horror, but they're going to be about isolated TV episodes, like from The X-Files or The Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, etc., those kind of shows. But that's all I got for today. Take care. Have a good one.